Hey, deserving listeners, Darcey and Stacey. I'm going to try to avoid being triggered. Let's watch.
Georgi in New York. Did you see Georgi talking to some models?
We all saw it. He went straight up to them and was flirting with them. He was very up close personal to one of the girls in particular.
The thing is that Stacey has demonstrated, at least in terms of the way the show is edited, to not be a reliable narrator of Georgi's behavior. I could list all the things all over again, but I'm not going to. You know all the different things. That Stacey, seemingly no matter what happens, she's going to see negativity in it. She's going to spin it in an extremely negative way. So for her, when we hear her say, oh yeah, I saw him flirting, there was one woman in particular, it's like, well, maybe, that could have been happening. It could even be worse than that. Maybe Stacey's even downplaying it for some reason. We don't know. But if we're going to at least go off of the way the show is edited, at least for me, I would say, well, that could mean anything. That could mean Georgi literally was just being friendly, or he literally wasn't even talking to anyone. He was just standing around people, and they spin it negatively. So, it's hard to say. Now, did he do that? Maybe. We certainly didn't see evidence of that on the show, but we all understand there's a lot of things that happen away from the cameras.
You didn't see anything wrong, Darcey?
Probably networking.
Oh, God, that's so bad. It's about respect.
Like, you network, you need to talk, I understand. No.
Not saying that he...
But sometimes...
No.
And Octavia has also demonstrated to be... it's hard to know. Octavia would know Georgi the best out of everyone in that room. So if we're going to trust anyone, I guess it would be her. On the other hand, she also seems to at least, if Octavia said something like, look, and she kind of did the first time we met her on the show was, yeah, there are good and bad things about Georgi. And, but here were some bad things. But then it quickly kind of cascaded right into just like bashing him, it seemed. So can we trust Octavia with her account? I think of everyone in this room, she would be the person we would trust. Well, so on one hand, her knowledge of him and the fact that she, I think, lives outside the ecosystem of this show, we could trust her the most. But on the other hand, it's not uncommon that when you go through a divorce, you have an extremely negative view. In fact, for all you out there, the person that probably hates you the most is someone that you dumped in the past. The person who thinks the most, that thinks you have a personality disorder or something, in terms of the internet way of diagnosing people from afar, as if that's an indictment. To be clear, if you have a personality disorder, that doesn't mean you're a bad person. It's like, I don't know where that idea got invented. But anyway, my point is that of everyone that knows you, if we put everyone on a list of how, at the top of the list is everyone who loves you, and at the bottom of the list is everyone who hates you, I'm guessing that those who reside in the bottom of the list are people that you dumped, people that you had a relationship with, or people not even necessarily dumped, but people that you were in a long-term relationship with and you broke up. Now, some people are very amicable as they break up, but clearly Octavia and Georgi were not. So on one hand, we trust Octavia's opinion. On the other hand, is it biased based on that very common phenomenon? We're also seeing that Florian is defending. I think Florian would have been there during all those instances. So, and we also see that Darcey is like, she's kind of staying out of it. And so if Darcey really believed that Georgi was flirting, I think we would hear that from her. And so I think Darcey's like, I don't want to bash on Georgi. I don't even really believe some of the premises that we're basing this criticism of him on, but I also don't want to piss off my twin sister. She's just trying to, it almost seems like Darcey doesn't even want to be there and all, at least having this kind of conversation.
You can't mansplain this.
Let her talk, Florian.
Like, that's not okay.
Let me rewind that.
Probably networking.
Oh, God, that's so bad. It's about respect.
Like, you network, you need to talk, I understand. No.
Not saying that he...
Sometimes,
No,
listen,
no.
I know.
You can't mansplain this.
All right, so let me describe the term mansplaining, which refers to a very real phenomenon that a lot of people have experienced, particularly women, in which men feel entitled to explain things that are obvious to women and or to take up way more space in a conversation than what would be called for or fair or appropriate. And it's due to sexism. It's also due to toxic masculinity being injected into young boys, that they need to dominate women, that they need to be smarter, they need to be in control, they need to be alpha, as the internet will call it, and that women are inferior, that women don't know what is happening in the world, that they don't understand, and they need to be patronized to because we live in a patriarchal society. So you have all those ideas, and that will create a tendency for some men to just insert themselves where they shouldn't, to assume that women are stupid, to explain, like I said, very fundamental, easy things, like a woman is having car trouble and without any kind of investigation as to whether or not the woman understands cars or not, or where her level of knowledge is, and without any self-awareness on his part regarding that he doesn't actually know that much about cars to begin with, the man will just walk up and just start saying, well, you've got to get the battery and the thing and, the spark plugs. And meanwhile, the woman is like, I'm a mechanic. And clearly you have no idea. You just walked over here without any knowledge of cars, and you just looked at me and just assumed I knew. And, that's cars, but, it happens all the time in workplaces. It's in relationships. Anyway, so mansplaining is a thing, and it happens, and it's annoying. And mansplaining can even affect men. I've been mansplained to by men who it seems that, they seem entitled, they like the sound of their own voice, that kind of thing. And so mansplaining is a thing. Having said that, whenever a man defends himself or explains something, that doesn't mean it's mansplaining. Just because you don't like the way a man is explaining something doesn't mean it's mansplaining. So when Florian says, well, you have to network when you're in certain businesses, you need to network. If you're I don't know if it's modeling or whatever it was that Georgi was supposedly networking on. I mean, and Octavia wasn't there. Florian probably was. And so Florian is defending Georgi to be like, well, he said he's not flirting, he's networking. Sometimes you need to network. That's all he said. And then he's being accused of mansplaining, which now, if maybe Octavia can make an argument that what Florian is doing is patronizing or patriarchal in some way or sexist in some way. Didn't look that way to me. And so, but what do I know? I'm a man. I mean, you know, by that definition, I'm literally mansplaining all the time, because things are happening on this show that often involve women, and I, as a man, as a cis man, are explaining things. I'm talking, sometimes sort of scrutinizing, and thus everything I'm doing is mansplaining. Now, I will say on that topic that has the patriarchy, has sexism, has misogyny affected my bias at times? Yes, because there's no way out of that bias. So I have, in all likelihood, been dipping into what could be described as mansplaining at times, for sure, where and some of you might even have detected that, like, oh, I don't think Kirk understands what's happening there because he's a man, or he, I think, feels entitled to kind of judge that or make a decision or a judgment call that isn't necessarily correct. He seems kind of in love with his own voice, which I kind of am. So, you know, have I mansplained? Yeah, there's no way out of it. But do I try not to? Yes.
Like, that's not okay.
I'm good, like, with him. I understand. I don't have issues with him.
You don't date him.
Huh?
Yeah, date him.
Like, what?
Honestly, like, you know, I'm not perfect. Neither of us are perfect in the relationship.
But stop justifying for
I'm
him.
not trying to justify. I'm explaining everything. This is a tell-all, Stacey.
That was an interesting dynamic right there. So Darcey is the one in a relationship with Georgi. Actually, we know now that they're not in a relationship from future interviews after this point. But at this point, they're still in a relationship, supposedly. And Darcey is saying, one, that she hasn't confirmed that she thought it was flirting. Florian has said it wasn't flirting. Stacey is 100% sure. Octavia wasn't even there. She's 100% sure it was flirting. But Darcey is saying, well, I don't know. And, you know, relationships have their pros and cons, their ups and downs. And then let's rewind that, because watch Stacey's demeanor, because I don't know if we usually see this demeanor, this kind of attitude. It starts to look like aggressive. Let's watch that.
With him.
And
I don't have issues with him.
You don't date him.
Yeah, date him.
Like, what?
For me, honestly, like, you know, I'm not perfect. Neither of us are perfect in the relationship. But stop justifying for him. I'm not trying to justify. I'm explaining everything.
I mean, aggressive is a strong word, but, you know, it's sort of dripping with, I don't know, resentment or anger or criticism, judgment or something like, oh, stop justifying him. And now, I've been saying from the beginning, there are three scenarios and others, but the three ones that I think are at the top of the list are Georgi is being bullied for nothing or for very little transgressions. And everyone is just delusional because they're trying to, for various different reasons, scapegoating, distracting from their own deep, deep, deep insecurities, which we could imagine they have. So we're watching someone being bullied, which has been basically what I've been operating from because of the way it looks. Or two, Georgi is doing horrible things, but they're not convincing us, the viewer, as to what those things are, because they either don't show them on camera, they don't talk about them directly. You would think if there was substance there, Stacey would bring it up, because she seems extremely interested in bringing up everything that he's done wrong. And so far, we've heard extremely dubious examples of how he's an atrocious human being who deserves all the treatment that he's been getting. But it's possible, right? It's possible that they're just really bad narrators of what Georgi has been doing, or they have interest in not outing what he has really done. Or three, there's nothing happening at all, and Georgi and Darcey are having a completely different story that we don't even know about, and the producers are just inventing something because they need to move the needle and raise ratings and get people to watch. And they're just completely flubbing it by not getting examples for us to be able to grab onto. Or they're geniuses because they know that even though they're completely screwing it up, because you always need an enemy. In order to, I'm pretty sure, I'm not, obviously I have no idea, this is speculative, but that the producers know that what drives ratings is a hated villain. Like before the 90 Day season 4 with Ed. Like, you need that Danielle, for example. You need that villain, that person that everyone hates, or at least kind of in that direction. And they could be geniuses in that they knew that there wasn't anyone to hate, that Georgi doesn't fit into the Jesse or Tom hated role. So they flipped it and coached Darcey and Stacey to come up with all this negativity, because they knew that the internet and the world would turn against Darcey and Stacey. But Darcey and Stacey didn't know that. And the producers actually flipped it on them. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out, to make sense out of this. So those are the options. And it looks like it's the first one, honestly. But it could be any of them.
We've heard a lot of things about Georgi today that have not been flattering. Is there a flip side? What is the flip side?
That's what I'm saying. Georgi, it can be very charming. He can make you like you're the center of attention, right? And then he has his ways of doing good and nice things. He's not a bad guy, but he does have bad tendencies. But when Georgi and...
Okay, that's what I was referring to earlier, that I remember now. Octavia, it doesn't have an all negative view of Georgi, and she just exhibited that. So that makes Octavia more of a reliable narrator of what happened. Okay, he has bad tendencies. Okay, give us the tendencies and give us examples of that. Now, I know enough about human beings to know that it's sometimes hard to describe. It's sometimes hard to convince other people. And then when you actually meet the person, you're like, oh, I mean, have you ever had that happen when a friend of yours is like, say you're in a friend group and one of your friends really hates another person in the friend group, and you've always had good experiences with that person. You're like, I don't understand why you hate him, because everything's fine with it. But then you start to get closer to that person. You're like, oh, that's where it is. I get it. So, that could be Georgi. I don't know.
He also told me he loved you and everything. I was like,
love
wow. I was like, wow, he's growing.
Yes.
It's a thing.
Yeah,
So I feel like it.
He loves me. I know that.
Yeah,
I love
and
him.
I feel like he understood where he went wrong. So I felt he was going in a better direction, and I was happy to see that.
It's not perfect. We're working on it.
Okay. So Darcey would know best. She's in the relationship with him. And she's saying, it's not perfect. We're working on it. He does love me. He does have good qualities. And, things are going okay. And Stacey does not like that narrative. And we've speculated as to why that would be. She either has a better understanding of what's happening and she's reacting rationally, or she compares herself. Her and Darcey have low self-esteem, and part of Stacey's self-esteem is based on making sure that Darcey is always doing worse than her. Seems like a pretty awful analysis. I mean, it's possible. I would hope that that isn't the case for everyone's sake. That another hypothesis is that the family needs a scapegoat, and if it's not Darcey, then it has to be Darcey's partners. And in the past, that was very easy to do because Darcey's partners were more easily scapegoated. But with Georgi, it wasn't so easy. And so you had to kind of shoehorn in examples as to why Georgi would be scapegoated. And someone actually commented, which made sense to me, that Darcey, by scapegoating Georgi, it's sort of like scapegoating Darcey, particularly the way Stacey talks to Darcey, that it's like, you're disgusting. I mean, the way that Stacey's just like, oh, you're just pathetic. Maybe that's a better word I was trying to think of earlier. Pathetic. You're pathetic. The way that Stacey talks to Darcey about Georgi, if you think about the content of what they're saying, and this is important whenever you're analyzing communication and psychology and human systems, is that the verbal part might not match the emotional part. It often doesn't, especially in conflict like this. The verbal part, Stacey's trying to protect Darcey from an evil partner. But emotionally, the outcome might be that Darcey just feels like crap, feels like Stacey thinks she's pathetic, thinks that she's stupid and worthless for even entertaining a relationship with Georgi. And so if we look at that emotional content, we might understand the dynamic and thus why this whole thing is happening to begin with.
Wants to be loved too, just like me. Okay, guys, his family's far, far away.
We've always said that.
Doesn't have anybody.
We've always
Good family
said
sense.
he is a good guy deep down, but we haven't really seen that deep love.
I love him. I know he loves me, and I'll be there for him.
So yeah, at this point, they're still together, and Darcey loves him, and he loves her. And that's the way it looked to me. Who knows what's really happening in someone's heart, but it looked like the two of them genuinely loved each other. But you just have to wonder, what happened? What was the problem? And if it was real, what a tragedy. If the edit is a reflection of reality, what a tragedy that it didn't work. Presumably, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you out there, from the beginning have been watching Darcey hoping that she would find someone to love her, someone that would be stable. With Jesse, it was, you're getting to know Darcey at the beginning of that first season, and you're getting to know Jesse, and you're like, oh, maybe this will work. And then it's like they start to fight, and you're like, oh, no. And then it gets really bad. You're like, oh, no. And then she meets Tom, and you're thinking, okay, well, Tom's a little bit, he's older, more mellow, a little bit more, I don't know, down to earth, I guess, than Jesse, which is a funny thing to say. And you're like, okay, maybe this will work. They don't fight as much, but then it started to get bad, and then it got really bad. I mean, I remember when he went to the house with that note, I was still kind of hoping that she would give it another try, because it seemed like Tom was apologetic and remorseful about, now, according to Tom, they were on a break, right? But I think he knew that he needed to be more clear with Darcey that we're on a break, just so you know, like, I'm dating other people. He didn't say that. And so for Darcey, it came across as cheating, which is understandable. But anyway, I thought that her and Tom could have worked. But she was done, maybe at the coaching of Stacey, looking back, honestly, sabotaging the situation. I don't know. Anyway, so then she meets Georgi, and we're like, oh boy, here we go again. And then, we're like, wait, this is actually going pretty well. And that first season, everything, and I remember thinking at the end of that first season of Darcey and Stacey, I thought, well, what are they going to make this show about if Darcey isn't in a fight with someone? I mean, I guess you could do Stacey and Florian. There seems to be a lot there, but not a lot there. And I just thought, well, how are they going to make a season 2? Are they just going to end it here? Are they going to go into their careers or something? I'm just trying to understand where they go with this story. And anyway, so, if it is all real, and it was love, and Georgi is a good person, and Stacey did poison the well, or Darcey's insecurities did get in the way and create distortions, then this is a huge tragedy for Darcey. And we see the pain that she's in, we see the insecurity, we see the desperation, we see the the longing and the crying and the sadness. And I mean, even if Georgi's problems were bigger, a little bit bigger than what we saw, which I'm sure is true, because I mean, we wouldn't be able to see everything, it still wouldn't have, I think, justified breaking up with him. Or even if it was a lot bigger, like if Georgi, according to Darcey, did love her, which we could believe, then this whole thing is, and then it's like, where does Darcey go from here? Where does she go? Like, because, yeah, I mean, I guess my only hope would be that she would learn and say, yeah, maybe I did kind of screw things up with Georgi. The next person, I'm going to try to be more self-aware. But, I've said that before. And anyway, but presumably y'all out there are watching similar to me, which is hoping that Darcey would find someone, settle down, feel like she deserves love and companionship and can get it, that someone could love her. And it's tragedy, really.
How are you going to say that in front of me when you're doing it to my sister? What are you talking about, bro?
Sit.
You're doing that to the person you're supposed to be in love with? That makes me want to come over there and take care of you real quick.
So, how dare you, Georgi, have credit card debt? I'm going to come over there and be violent with you. I'm going to hit you. I'm going to assault you physically because you have credit card debt. Presumably, at least in part, because, and people have been pointing this out to me, reminding me about the beginning of this whole thing, was that he had a job, he had a house, he was independent. Darcey, I mean, not in a super forceful way, but with some emotional control, demanded that he give up his home. Remember that whole thing, that he give up his job and move in with her during COVID. And, because presumably this was filmed a while back, right? So it would have been like, mid-Delta maybe during this time. Who knows? Point is that how dare you even, anyway. So presumably his credit card debt happened before he even met Darcey. I don't know. But anyway, just imagine that. For you out there, average American has tens of thousands of dollars in credit card debt. Imagine that a friend of your spouse saying, I'm gonna physically assault you with righteousness because you have credit card debt. It's like, I mean, I'm not going to go over that ground again. So hopefully Darcey and Stacey and Michael watching this scene will go, oof, that was pretty awful. Georgi was just cooking us hamburgers, and we threatened him physically because he had credit card debt and he put $1,000 in a sock. That's pretty deplorable. We are the bad guys. Maybe we shouldn't have done that. Let's see what they say.
You talk Excuse me? Back up, bro. Now you're getting out of line.
I mean, just watch that. He's like, you're talking BS. Excuse me? Back up, bro. Now you're out of line. It's like, what? I mean, who are you? Are you talking to me, or is there someone behind me that you're like, I don't know what's happening. Like, you just threatened me physically because I have credit card debt. You don't even know how much. You don't even know the circumstances. And then I say, this is some BS, and you say back up. Now I'm out of line. I'm the one out of line because I said it's BS. Anyway.
The way how you talk to me is disrespectful. You don't know me. Wherever the problem is in the past, they're in the past. I'm done. Bye.
Yeah, and I remember commending Georgi for walking off. That's what I would have done way earlier than that. I'd be like, I'm out. Drop the tongs.
Wow. That was heated.
The red flags, bro. You know what I mean?
Very disrespectful.
Okay, so...
Very disrespectful. It's very disrespectful that Georgi has credit card debt. He is deserving of physical assault threats. He deserves to have someone punch him in the face and harm him physically. There's my three options, right? And this would be evidence in the first one, that he literally is being bullied by distorted thinkers. Because to watch that scene and to not at least say like, oosh, I think we went a little far, would mean, unless you have something else, maybe they'll be like, hey, just to let everyone know, he did the following 5 things, which makes it so that he deserved to be treated that way. So unless we hear something like that, I think we're seeing that he is literally just being bullied. Because watching that scene, they'd be like, you didn't include the following 5 reasons. Let's hear.
Who is at fault for the fight that night?
First of all, I know he's coming protect mode, but the hard things is treat Georgi boom down, trick Georgi.
Are you saying it was Michael's fault?
Yeah, Michael's fault, but it's Michael's fault, but Georgi trick fast,
Yeah, Michael's fault. Okay, so Florian would know more than I would. He's there. He is saying, he's the only one that we can kind of rely on. He's not a super reliable narrator of Georgi's situation, but of the people in that room, he would be the closest. So he's saying, yeah, it was Michael's fault. But he's saying, but Georgi gets triggered. How was Georgi triggered? He was calm and cool throughout 99% of that. And then at a certain point started to get he started getting frustrated. What's happening here? You don't know me. And then he wanders off. How is he triggered? I saw no triggering. I saw him. I saw people treating him extremely poorly, threatening him with physical violence because he puts money in a sock. And I saw him being extremely calm and then got a little reactive and then walked off. How is that triggered? That's him being extremely emotionally regulated and fair, and if anything, a doormat. I mean, if that was me, if I was Georgi, oh my God, I don't take that kind of stuff very well. Talk about triggering me. I mean, I was triggered watching it. I had a bigger reaction than Georgi watching it.
Georgi reacted very quickly.
Very fast.
Do you think that Georgi was not welcoming to Michael?
Standing by the grill,
The ego is flaring.
tongs,
Started to have an attitude.
He started having attitude. He's standing by the grill, just I mean, yeah, that's what you do when you're cooking for everyone else. You stand at the grill with your, what was he supposed to do? Michael came in accusing him from the first thing he was saying to him, or at least within the first couple things. And Georgi was like, so what should Georgi have done? got down on his knees and said, "I'm so sorry, I put my own money. I need to calm down."
Dude, you know, like he was on guard a little bit already, like, you know, puffing out the chest, like he was getting his ego.
Right.
Yeah, I wanted the peace. I don't like the...
If we're looking at, okay, is it actual bullying? Is it that something is going on, but we're just not seeing it on the show? Is it the producers producing something? We're definitely not seeing evidence for 2. We're seeing evidence for 1 and 3, because it's still possible that it's the producers saying, you gotta make it Georgi as the bad guy, or if you want to make Georgi the bad guy, go for that. You know, we'll encourage that. And Sean is kind of asking questions along those lines, just like I would hope that she would say, well, when I watch it, I see everyone ganging up and bullying someone. What do you think about that? You know, like, I would hope she would ask that question, because that's the way I see it. I think that's the way everyone else sees it. Anyway, so the producers still might be drumming this up. But it also, it's definitely, so if it's number 2 and there are actual things that Georgi is doing behind the scenes that are awful, then they would say, well, he wasn't bad in this instance, but when you've seen him in other situations, he's really bad off camera. But that's not what they're saying. What they're saying is, when we watch that scene, we see him and his ego, him being problematic, him being aggressive. And so you're either distorted, like you don't see reality and you just see it the way you want to see it emotionally, or you're lying and you're trying to just come up with a story to tell for the show. So anyway, it's because in the moment, the way that it progressed, you're like, well, maybe Darcey was kind of caught off guard. It seemed that way. The next day, she apologized to Georgi for not having his back. Kind of, she apologized, but she did apologize. But this is a while later, probably months later, and she watches that and doesn't say, oh, that was that moment where I didn't have his back. I've apologized to him for that. And watching it now, because you would think if she actually felt sorry the next day, she would have felt very sorry later on, right? Because especially watching it, you just be like, oh my God, there's that moment where I did that thing that I apologized for. We're not hearing any of that. We're hearing, yeah, Georgi was the problem. What?
Confrontation, but I just felt kind of caught in the middle.
Michael, do you think it was your fault?
Sort of. I think like, you know, yeah, for sure. I take responsibility for coming hot, no problem. But the way he was acting, he wasn't very welcoming himself for me.
Yeah, he wasn't welcoming. I mean, he wasn't super warm. I mean, no, he was. When they first met, he was cordial. I mean, I think he was a little skeptical, but because even the way Michael came off, it came off as, I don't know the word, smarmy or something right off the bat, like kind of, I don't know if that's just Michael's way of introducing himself or something, but that doesn't justify any of the things that happened afterwards. But I will commend him for saying, I think I was, you know, mostly at fault or something like that. But then, of course, he has this huge but. Yeah, I take full responsibility, but, you know, da-da-da. When you have the but, it kind of negates taking responsibility.
You know what I'm saying? So that just indicates to me that there is no respect for me. You know, dudes be pouring drinks on me, not cool. You know what I'm saying? I'm not even gonna go into that, but I'm just saying, like, you...
Georgi poured a drink on you?
No, I'm just...
Darcey, did that happen?
It wasn't the day at the beach.
It's off camera.
It was off camera.
It was off camera.
Interesting. So apparently they all agreed not to talk about Georgi pouring a drink on Michael. Was it at the Everglades thing? So that's interesting. Is this evidence of it being number 2, where there are things happening and they're just not talking about it? It seems hard to believe, right? Can we see a scenario off camera where Georgi's like, okay, the cameras are off, I'm gonna let Michael have it, based on what he did to me in front of everyone in front of the cameras? Yeah. And was there a drink spilled on him? Yeah. I mean, it's hard to know what happened though, right?
Fun, and it just kind of turned sour, and Georgi, kind of had a little bit of a wandering eye. Like, was sitting next to one of the girls there, like kind of, I don't know. It was just weird. And at one point, Georgie was holding on to my debit card and he wouldn't give it back. I was like, that's my card, it's my money.
He wanted to control the card and be like, oh, why you want it back, bro?
Okay, so we're hearing that it's an interesting story. So I'm going to take a guess based on everything that we've seen. This is total speculation that Georgie was at least kind of out of line in this story that they're telling. I don't know about the wandering eye bit, but maybe. And then not giving the card back. I'm guessing there's another side to the story of some kind of that he would say, no, actually what happened was this happened and then I did that. And then if we took all that into account, we'd say like, well, Georgie was wrong, but in the other people were wrong too. It's just, I'm just going to take a guess and say that that behavior emerged in a series of wrongs happening. But it is interesting to hear, because it's hard to imagine Georgie doing those things. But as I've been thinking, like, are there things happening behind the scenes that we just don't know about? Maybe we're hearing it actually right now.
Tell me face to face.
You think I can take you serious like that?
Yes, I'm serious.
No,
Come
I
face
can't
to
take you
face.
serious. I can't
Yes,
take you serious.
I'm sorry, God, and my sister gave. I'm so serious.
Guys, hold up for just a second.
So now Florian is threatening Jesse, which I will say under the circumstances is unjustified and uncool. Maybe Florian could convince me otherwise, but it looks like Jesse was just asked to be on the show. He shows up on camera, and Florian just starts laying into him like, go away. So, you know, it's interesting. It's interesting to see Florian because I think he's like genuinely upset. I don't think he's drumming it up.
Listen to me. Listen to me, I'm sorry, God, and Jesus.
You say I don't understand?
Come, no understand. You don't understand. You don't understand nobody.
Florian, come on.
Jesse, come to my face. And
what are you standing?
Can
you just sit down? I'm answering Sean's question. I'm not talking to you.
Hey,
I don't know who you are, but
are you
please sit down.
There was a show called Jerry Springer. The Jerry Springer Show is what it was called. In the beginning, the Jerry Springer Show was like the Phil Donahue Show or Oprah or something. It was a respectable show in which you had guests on and you would try to have rational conversations. Over time, there would be little flare-ups of drama and on-stage antics, maybe even violence between people that need the bouncers to get involved to pull people away from each other. And they got huge ratings because of that. Seemingly behind the scenes, they decided, well, when we're trying to provide honest, respectable programming, we get this amount of people to watch. But when we have a huge blow-up, we get this amount. How do we get more of that big blow-ups? Well, we can either find people who might naturally have a big blow up on stage, which they tried for a while. But then after a while, they just descended into literally paying people to lie on stage. And there were all these exposés of producers coming to someone and saying, look, I know you two don't know each other, but we're going to pay the two of you to act like you used to be in a relationship. And here's the scenario. And we need you to be on stage screaming at each other and threatening each other. And eventually it became so cartoonish that the audience, and I think including the viewership, detected that it was basically kind of like big time wrestling, where you know it's fake, but it's still fun anyway. There's people in the audience laughing as people's lives are seemingly falling apart on stage. So it became just like, you know, a bunch of fifth graders crowding around as two people get into a fight. Like, ha, ha, ha. It's just the lowest common denominator of human existence, really.
Drink your coffee, water, what you have.
It's tea, bro. I'm drinking some hot tea.
He's insecure. He's just trying to get a rise out of you, bro. But I get it. If he's going to sit there and run his mouth, you're good to defend your girl. That was great. But that dude is a waste of energy. He's a waste of space. If he was here, it'd probably be worse because we'd both be going WrestleMania.
It's interesting to see Michael's reaction here. So Florian is getting worked up. Michael's trying to kind of support that effort. Florian is very upset, seemingly, genuinely in distress, walks off stage. Michael follows and is trying to soothe Florian, trying to reassure him, saying a lot of things that you would hope, I guess, a friend would say. And that lends itself to, now that we have two data points here in terms of Michael's reactivity, it makes me wonder if Michael grew up with a lot of fighting in his family. This is just me with psychobabble and analysis, but maybe for Michael, he has traumas around people fighting with each other, maybe even his own parents, I don't know. And it was his role in the family to try to support, and if he didn't do that, then really horrible things would happen. Like maybe it was his job to get his parents to stop fighting with each other, because if he could do that some of the time, it would reduce the consequences for the family or something. I don't know. But I mean, the reason why I say that is because if there's something in that category, it would explain his distortion and his extreme behavior with Georgi. It would also explain I don't know, but it seems like an anxious reactivity to Florian. And because if Michael, anyway, point is because Darcey didn't follow Florian. Florian walks off and Darcey and Stacey are just sitting there going, I mean, it seemed like they didn't care. But I think Michael, I don't know, this is a lot of speculation, but it could be that Michael has anxiety about people being in a bad mood because it was his role to actually soothe people when he was growing up. And so maybe he detected that in Darcey and Stacey, and that really got him anxious. And then he's like, I'm going to let someone have it because I want Darcey and Stacey to not have that bad mood. And now Florian is having a bad mood. I must help him. And it's not a bad impulse, right, to help a friend who's in a bad mood.
Have hurt you worse? Jesse?
Tom understood it.
I disagree, because me and Darcey were friends, and I knew what Jesse had done to her, and I should have been better. Jesse didn't know better.
Yeah, I mean, this is reflective of my conceptualization of their personalities, that for Tom, he was more level-headed, he had his issues, and he could take responsibility, and he does have remorse. I don't think he was awful, but, in the ups and downs of a relationship that we can all have, I think he was like, oh, that was bad. And in this moment, he is, Darcey is saying, I don't know if you caught it, Jesse was the most traumatic to me and hurt me the most. And Tom immediately says, I disagree. I was the worst because I knew better, and I knew what Jesse had done to her, and I still I was her friend. I was her friend before she met Jesse. I was her friend during Jesse, and I knew what was happening. I still mistreated her. I should have known better. And, it takes a big person to admit that.
I did. I should have been a better person. I should have.
I do want to say in response to that I feel really bad if she is hurt the way that she expresses. And I really want to apologize and again stress that I really want all the best for you.
Tom's response, the vibe of it is different. I don't know I don't know his heart, but it's possible, I don't know, that Jesse's response there is impression management, that he knows he's supposed to say a certain thing. Do I believe that Jesse has no remorse? No. I believe, meaning that, is Jesse capable of remorse? Is he capable of empathy? I think so. I don't know, but I think so. But is there something getting in the way at times? Maybe. Because I think a more convincing response from Jesse would be something like, yeah, when I look back, I think about the way I would get upset, and then I would start yelling at her. And although I understand kind of where I was coming from, of course, at the time, but I took it too far. And I said some pretty regrettable things to her. And Darcey, I'm really sorry that I hurt you. And it seems like you're still in pain about that. And to be honest, I'm kind of still in pain about the whole thing too, not to make it about me, but it was kind of, something along those lines. We can't imagine Jesse saying something like that, but something in that direction. But that's not what we heard. What we heard was, I am sorry, and I wish you the best. It's just that kind of common response that a lot of people in shows like this will say because they've heard other people say it. Now, I don't know. Maybe Jesse in his heart does care and does see how he hurt her. Do I think it was all his fault? No. I mean, looking back, especially now that we've seen Darcey with other people, you know, there were some issues there. But yeah, now that I remember, I mean, Jesse, his insecurity seemingly was so profound that when Darcey would say anything mildly critical, it would just throw him into a state, and then he would just start, you know, really laying into her, and this like superior attitude would come out. And so, yeah, that was pretty awful. And of course, you know, if you have that amount of insecurity, it's hard to admit that you've done something wrong.
And that's, I mean it with all my heart. That is sincere.
Thank you. I accept your apology.
Even if it is just a gesture, it's a nice thing to say. He could have been defensive about it or something, and he wasn't. So do I believe that Jesse truly cares and does wish good things for Darcey? Yes, I do think there's a part of him that, so I think he's expressing that honest feeling. Do I think that Jesse fully understands what he did to Darcey and sees that he was in the wrong, at least at times? We don't see any evidence of that.
Darcey, you got an apology from both Jesse and Tom. And do you feel that today marks the end of the...
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Darcey's going to say, yeah, it was the end a long time ago. I don't even know why the producers wanted me to talk to these two yahoos. It was over years ago. Yes, it's over. I'm pretty sure Darcey's going to say that.
And only wish you guys the best. That's all I want. Everybody to be happy.
Okay, I think we've all said what we needed to say. Jesse and Tom, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you being here.
All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.